So we went through a few of the different things in terms of RAM, and in this video I wanted to just go through effectively what prefetches mean. So we've got prefetch and frequencies. So the prefetch is effectively, in its simplest term, how many pieces of data goes through in each term, and it's one, right? They're usually calculated in n's. So the lowest one is 1n. It's one bit of information. It's one piece of information that goes through to be calculated effectively. And you might get a 2n, a 4n, and we're on about 8n now. I think DDR4 was 8n, and 5 is 8 or 16, but probably more so running at 8, and the DDR1s was 1. So obviously the prefetch is effectively just saying, well, the more information that goes through, effectively the quicker the calculations can be. You can get more information through, so you can do more things. And that's kind of what we've got with the frequencies, because in the same vein, we've got the frequency difference of, well, this is your bandwidth, I suppose. So the bandwidth would be the frequency. You might see DDR4 RAM, and the RAM might be running at 3,600 megahertz, which is relatively fast, an actual relatively fast, and that's a real figure as well. So this is effectively going to be the bandwidth of information that can be passed through at the same time. So it's the bandwidth of operation. Now, if you have something like 32 gigabytes at 3,600 megahertz, you might just about get faster, but you probably won't, of having sort of 16 gigabytes of DDR3. So let's say that this is DDR3, this is DDR4. You might get 16 at sort of 3,200 megahertz. This you might find runs faster. So the DDR4 one might run faster than the DDR3 one. It tends to be more than just the frequency or the amount of prefetch it's got that speeds up RAM. But in general, the faster the frequency and the more prefetch it's got, it's going to work a lot better, including the amount you have. So if you had 32 gig at a lower frequency, it might work better than 16 gig at higher frequency effectively. So in the same vein, not only does the DDR3 versus DDR4 make a big difference, but also the amount makes a big difference, and the frequency. So overall, if I wanted fast RAM, if I wanted a fast computer, then I would be installing the highest megahertz I can possibly get, which might be around 4,200 megahertz ish. I know DDR5 revs a lot higher than that, but well, it can do. But effectively, that's a very, very fast RAM module, something along those lines. I would want it to be 16 gigabyte DIMMs, so as much as possible. And I'd probably want to put several DIMMs in as well. So I'd overall have like 256 gigabytes running at 4,200 of DDR. I mean, if you can get DDR5 at the moment, it would be incredibly expensive, but DDR5 RAM as well. Perfect. Now, just the last thing I'm going to mention is the expense of these things. Sometimes, because DDR5 came out not long ago, it's not generally like the money isn't generally worth the speed, and the volatility of DDR5 isn't worth the money either. So I might want to go for a stable DDR4. It's been out for a long time, and I might get the 3600 megahertz one, and I'll have 64 gig of the stuff. I might decide to do that over getting DDR5, which might cost, say, I don't know, £1,000. It doesn't. 64 gig. No, it wouldn't cost about £1,000, even if you got the, even if you got the best type, which is the RGB. That's red, green, blue. That's the one with the lights on it. So it might cost about, say, £1,000, whereas for £1,000 you might get a DDR5 running at around, I don't know, let's say 5,000 megahertz, but that's probably overkill. And for the same £1,000, let's say, I might only be able to get 16 gig, but that 16 gig of DDR5 hasn't been well tested. It's not been on the market. It might not be working with CPUs properly and things like that. I don't know. It's a new product, right? It's a new thing. So sometimes people will choose to have the older technology just out of the sensibility of it, rather than always going for the maximum DDR5.